I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Please, Lord, forgive them. They try to hold back and chillin' like they ain't know it was written. Break every chain. Wanna free my people from mental prisons. With your eyes on the sparrow, I know we'll narrow divisions. Hope is the boat to keep us afloat just as you envision. Faith to erase the pain from all of our people slain. Destined for change, with actions to back up your spoken name. When they throw dirt on ours, we use it to plant gain. When it rains, we grow greater together, no matter the weather. Trust these dark days, gonna get better. Know that love will be the light to guide all our endeavors. And even if the tide should rise, we'll ride it forever. Why? We are mighty, we'll fight for our lives, cause we're dying to live. Future is ours, the timing is now. Black and we proud, we saying it loud. We gave it our all, there's so much more to give. We breaking down all the walls. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Never backing down for the cause. Try to put our life on pause, cause we move in the image of God. No matter the hate that's spoken, our spirits remain unbroken. The divine map says you can't count us out. We are the answer. From the youth to the elders, ain't what you can tell us. Style and brilliance of mind, heart is bright as sunshine. Warrior spirits alive, so no, we won't be denied. So vibration is high and the frequency so angelic, like rise up, people, come on, rise up, rise up, rise. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. I know these times won't last, even though they've been tough. Just let them know my people been had enough. Tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise. I tell them we gon' rise up. We gon' rise up. Rise up. Rise up, oh, rise up.
Yes, sir. You already know what you got to do on a Monday night. Rise up, family. Rise up with us here at Soundbytes International Radio. African consciousness is the claim.
One world is the aim.
Absolutely, absolutely. Bringing conversations pertinent to our diasporic landscape to you, and you all over the globe. To ensure healing and fortification of our people. Ashe.
Thanks.
Of course, I'm Hasirka Nefarah, and this is
Nefarah to my IT Ra.
Yes, we're working it through. So, yes, make sure you join us live on, Facebook and YouTube. We live on Facebook and YouTube right now, family. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook. We are all available. Soundbytes International Radio on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're following there. Also follow us on Facebook. If follow us and like us on Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio, fan. We're also on Instagram, Soundbytes International Radio. You can follow us there as well.
Hit us on the gram.
Hit us on the gram. Soundbytes on the gram. And you can also follow our past episodes, past seasons on Soundbytes International Radio on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We are available there as well. Also, and of course, you see scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you find value in what Soundbytes brings with these conversations each week, we do appreciate any donations or gifts or support around the growth of Soundbytes. Every little bit helps, of course, as always, in independent space. So, but we do appreciate the love, regardless that folks show us. So we're happy to be of service. And we're here, today to just touch on some spaces and things and conversations and necessarily around our self-care, especially when you talk about what we do here at Soundbytes, and those that follow, those that are looking to be in the space of understanding around this African consciousness, what that means, and all the in-betweens of uh, speaking to and standing for the righteousness and upliftment of the African people, especially here and abroad. Um, and we realize that there's a lot that goes into, a lot of energy that goes into, a lot of energy that is dispelled, a lot of energy that's taken in. Um, so self care and how we address these things is crucial, just to keep us afloat and maintain throughout this process. Because it's not the easiest process to go through on a daily basis when you're in a space of self discovery, and identity, and compounding that on showing up with the community of folks that are looking to do the same and find the truth by any means. So we want to look at how are we showing up in these spaces for ourselves, how we address the conversation, how we take the necessary steps to embody it in a way that works for us, right? Because there's the militant space, the folks that like have a staunch position around it. There's the artists, the poets, and the musicians and the interpretive artists, um you know the platforms like this with sound bites where we sharing information, we're talking and radio and informative broadcasting. So there's different ways to go about this conversation to edify and share with our folks. So in looking at these different spaces, how are we showing up for ourselves when we embark on this journey, right? Because it is a journey. So we ask you to join the conversation, share your conversation, share your thoughts within the chat, share the link, share the broadcast with your folks, share it with the village so we can build out this conversation and move further. Again, you want to go fast, go along. You want to go far, go together. So that's what we stand by here when we have these conversations. Um, so yeah, I don't know if you got any thoughts around this stuff, Rob. We wanted to share.
Yeah. Well, give thanks. Peace and blessings, family. Glad to be here. Glad to be my amazing co-host and sexiness. So yeah, family. I mean, I really wanted to really just discuss this whole topic because there is a huge need for us to catalog our growth and so that we can hand these things over to our next generations. That's really what, you know, to maintain the efforts that are in continuity, right? So that we're not consistently starting from scratch because we have somehow misinterpreted our behavior. So we basically want to look at good African mental health, which is different from our daily living condition. And because it's not in the to-do list for our social landscape, the social landscape is that of, suck it up and deal with it. And as long as there's representation, you should feel like you being seen. And as long as we let you wear your natural kinky hair and afros and stuff, then I guess you should be all right with the rest, which isn't really the development of self-efficacy and self-advocacy for African people. And then the juxtaposition is when it does show up, uh, it's been already marked within our social landscape as militant or revolutionary or political, when in reality it's self-advocacy and everyone has to do self-advocacy because it's a healthy thing to do, right? People shouldn't be able to mistreat you, but we have never been taught as African people to self-advocate. And the moment that we self-advocate, it appears uh, as unwanted, and then there are immediate triggers that go off in our spaces with the people in our spaces where they reject self-advocacy to the point where even for when people get ready in our place as Africans during our mental health, when we get ready to do self-advocacy work, it shows up from us being the practitioner of it. It shows up with a heavy hand, and it shouldn't have to. It shouldn't have to, and it shouldn't be. It should be interacted with as aggression, because self-efficacy is a need in our society, and it also demonstrates boundaries, and it demonstrates one's ability to stand for one's self-worth and worthiness as a human. And every creature has a protective measure that's given to us by our divine instruction when we came into the space. We all have mechanisms of protection. We looked at the tree. We were talking yesterday about the Atlantis. If we cut the Atlantis down, it will secrete.
Folks.
It will secrete poison that will be injected into the soil because this tree has an ability to protect itself.
It's also known as a tree of was it a tree of heaven?
The tree of heaven.
Yeah. That's
So don't mess with it.
Right.
Don't mess with it. But when we think about self-advocacy in our social landscape, because remember, good African mental health, unfortunately, no matter how the niceties look and the pleasantries, it is something that's frowned upon in our social landscape. It's just frowned upon, and it's unfortunate because we respond to the fact that it's just frowned upon by clenching up with our mental health. We clench up, we fist up, and we get ready to ball up. Like, so we got to, because we know how it's going to be seen. So we got to go in there on triple height to get ready to go in and knock some heads off. Because we get ready to go and crack some heads. So that's how and that's the energy that we walk with, women and men, both. I've seen very few people are able to be in an advocacy space where it's about the work, right? And it's a balance between being able to be about the work and be in practice of the work without being in an emotional response where you start to ingest the stress.
Right. And I think it's certainly understandable. Like we get it, right? Like, like Nefra and I, we assess this landscape on a daily basis, right?
Daily.
So we get it. We get the high emotion that comes along with whether you've been in it for years and years or decades or what have you, or you just discovering the realities of what you're dealing with in your human condition as an African out here. We get the high emotion, we get the anger, we get the frustration, we get the troubling spirit around the reality you've been living of pretty much a lie in how your everyday life you think it was supposed to go, right? That's a lot to take on, and that's a lot to consume and try to peel back and figure out. And you can take probably another set of decades to really peel back everything, and then some, right? Because things, the process is ongoing of evolution. But in the days also, that's again part of that self-care of understanding what do you need to do to mitigate what that energy brings, right? Because people say anger can produce results, and in the cases of understanding,
power concedes to nothing but a demand. That's another one,
right? So 48 laws of power type, BS or whatever the case may be. The idea that it has to be this forceful hand, right? But understand that that's also a response to a social condition that was curated outside of our own consciousness,
right?
So what we do in that case is really responding to it, right? And we're responding to this consciousness with pieces of that consciousness infusing that, right? The rage, the anger, the fight, the greenness of it,
like
right?
It's
the idea of fight. It's the idea of fight fire with fire. So we've latched onto that. If you can't beat them, join them. Latched onto that crazy rhetoric and all that type of stuff, like
wild and unruly, and it's a lot of aggression and it's a lot of heaviness.
And we want to be clear. There's ways that is a lot of this is figuring out how to best process these things and which spaces you use to process these things. And these spaces meaning like your environment, which can further mean the people that are there. Are these people a safe space to help you process what you're going through, to process what you're understanding? Maybe they can help you find more education, or are they going to help you go flip some tables over? And if you flip those tables over, did you actually create any results? They say Jesus flipped tables over, but he also did other things, right? Like, it's not just the idea of humanity, so to speak. He also, the idea of Jesus, he was creating results, right, in other ways.
For those who use Jesus as their model or type,
but just that idea of like, there's something in the action piece of the showing the frustration, but that we offer that it doesn't have to be the only way, right? Because it's like, yes, you speak loud about it. This isn't right. This needs to change. Then what's the action after that, right? Because we have a lot of that, and it shows up, and we see it a lot. It shows up in protests, and again, when you think about protests and marches and things of that nature, that's one piece of a larger puzzle to help solve the issue of the current landscape, right? Because we can protest and march, but what's the end game and goals? What's the list of demands? How are we looking to execute that? Who are we bringing along as a team to execute that? It's not just the idea of going out to rabble rouse for the sake of rabble rousing. You rabble rousing to create a form of result to change the landscape of what you're going through. You're looking for transformation. You're looking for a new condition. You're looking for the equity and justice and respect and dignity of a people to take place, right? And the more we look at this idea of like it has to be this one thing, or this is what revolution means, or this is what Black Power means, or this is what all these things. Like it's an array of things that's equally powerful in how we represent our Blackness. We can't help this when we walk out on the street. We move culture, right? We're African. We move culture no matter where we go. That's what we do. Right, so that's an innate ability. So how do we activate that in a space that allows us to serve ourselves, right? To serve ourselves better versus this idea of it looking one way, right? This idea of looking like this it is just a rah-rah. And I say that because people, again, going back to the processing piece, how are you processing information you're getting? If you haven't even been cultivated in your growing up process of how to process your emotions, which a lot of us deal with, right? Especially Black men, especially African men deal with that. The idea of how to process your emotions when you're told to man up and all that type of stuff. There is that other piece of the struggle of just your humanity in itself, let alone Africanness, but like just your humanity of itself. Of like how have you been taught and in culture to nurtured to process your emotions, process your what's going on around you, right? How you mentally processing, breaking it down, logic to heart, all that type of stuff plays a factor in just one, in your humanity, and two, within that, once you successfully understand that, how you processing this to show what it means to be a fully standing and animated African, right? An upstanding African person and being in every space that you're in, right? Without it looking one type of way that actually can be impactful for the long haul, right? I got people out here, and I say this because we have people that are on the other side of it, the Africans that you quote unquote get labeled as the unwoke or the sleep or what have you, that aren't processing the seeing that energy as an effective method of showing Blackness, right? Showing Africanness. So there is a thing of like, there's some people just won't get it, right? And it's an unfortunate part of the process. But there are those that may be in the space that aren't readily seeing how this works, right? Already seeing how this particular type of energy works. They think all that woke, they militant, all the hotep, this thing, grand rising.
Now. Oh no, they don't get an opportunity to be in it.
I see that what I'm seeing is this in process lately, and it's really actually really off-putting, is more and more people are attributing sayings, right, of the culture to a particular type of being or a particular type of overarching blanket of the culture. All people will say grand rise and they probably in full of shit, or I'm tuning them out once they start talking. Oh, I can't stand a hotep and all this type of stuff. And what it does is it cripples how we're what's the word I'm looking for? It cripples how we're engaging with African-centered consciousness, how we're engaging in getting back to the African identity, how we're engaging with Sankofa, how we're engaging with owning who we are as a people, beyond just the I don't see color crowd and a lot of type of stuff, but we're just here, we're living life, and the integrationist mindset, right?
This whole everybody kumbaya, which is a larger conversation.
No.
And thank you so much for coming in.
Yes, peace and power. Thank you, Sister Chrissy. We see you out there. Thank you so much.
Please be sure to share the link. Please be sure to invite others to the conversation. There's a very balanced and a very authentic, unabashed conversation on unapologetically level African analysis conversation that happens here specifically at Soundbytes. We don't really do for too much of the antics come along because it's just being African. It's just, we throw in a little antics every now and again, but there's a real strong, very specific and unique African-centered balanced conversation that happens here at Soundbytes. This is really part of the reason why we continue to do it. So we need to, have more people having the conversation, having more people having access to the information that's available. And listen, we're not perfect. We're still in our journey. Just be clear, we are still in our journey. We have achieved certain levels of elevation, and we've already cataloged and passed certain levels of development in terms of our own ways of being that allows us to be in support of others on that journey. We also mark ourselves oftentimes, we are marked ourselves oftentimes as a reminder for those who've been in the work for a long time and lost their flame. So we oftentimes
burnt out folks.
They burnt out hoteppers who've been down on the grind and in the grind for a long time, who need that extra light and that situation to turn around a little bit for them to become recommitted to their journey, because they get caught up in the mundane and they no longer frequency vibrate. Because I've experienced those people, and it's sad when you got new people trying to usher in, but the old hoteppers who want to be like you, who wants what you have. You look miserable. You're heavy. Your energy is yuck. I see you out there holding groups. I see you out there, serving the people and holding classes, but your energy is heavy and it's yuck. It's not alluring at all, because you know what we up against? We up against the allure of the glittering glamour that the Matrix has to offer our people.
Right.
So if you don't appear happy, why do I want what you have?
Right.
So that's who I came up against. It came up and into as I was developing. So this is why I tell you, African, chew up the fat, spit out the bone, because people are still in their journey.
Yeah.
Okay. In various facets of their journey, they're still in their journey. So, please invite people to the conversation. We need to have more people in the conversation.
Yeah.
And we also know that people get an opportunity to have a narrative to be able to express these conversations where there was none. Because if you've never been to a space where there's an authentic African-centered conversation that's not about pushing you some stuff, and, we get caught up in trying to detach ourselves, and this is what's bringing us into our topic, is that we haven't had a way to catalog our emotions and interact with our experiences and proper protocol for African-centered healing. We have a lot of scholars who've written a lot of books, but oftentimes I've come to understand that even though they've written books, they don't authentically live that particular life, and they're not necessarily in it in real time. Sometimes you'll catch a book that somebody wrote and had an inspiration that was 25, 30 years old. And now by the time you meet them, they burnt out and they all dried up, and they're not giving you loving African energy. They just like, here, buy my stuff. Because that's what I've run into. I run into the 60, 67-year-olds, 80-year-olds at this point. And all they're doing is they don't lost the African luster. They're no longer giving you the embrace. There's no longer loving, intention, energy in that space anymore. It's more like, yeah, well, and me personally, I don't go to the elders, but because I'm not a groupie, right? I'm living this African experience, so I'm not looking to what they call it. It's not like fever. It's not like what do you call it? Starstruck.
Starstruck, yeah.
Right. This is not about being starstruck, because we need real systems that work for our people to get our people out the shit that they in, because we in some shit.
Yeah.
Like we in some real shit. And these folks got another 400 years in store for us. We ain't gonna even like what they coming with.
The problem is they sweep us up under the rug.
It's not okay. We gotta have a real conversation about this, and we need folks to check in. We need people. We need our elders to check in. Granted, they have the work that's available, and I'm clear about this, because what I am is the analyzer, and I'm here to say that we need solutions and strategies for what's moving forward. So we have to address the areas where we have vulnerability, and these are some of the areas where we have vulnerability. So if our elders are not necessarily holding the space for the joy, for the community, and then you know what happens. Once you hold the space for the joy in the community, everybody comes to you with their problems, because everybody comes to me with their problems, and all they want to do most of the time is take.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't give nothing back. And we understand when those elders get to be in their 60s, 70s, and 80-year-olds, they lost some of their luster, because nobody helped them, because everybody took. So
right.
this is a balanced space, right?
On top
so
of the system
eventually,
taking,
and on top of the constant of the system taking, and the constant of the evolutions that are happening in our social landscape that maybe some of our elders ain't keeping up with.
Yeah.
Right? And then you got young people who the elders are not accustomed to having to interact with young people the way young people need to be interacted with today. Mm. They come from a different era where you say, yes, sir, ma'am, excuse me, ma'am, yes, thank you. That's what they're accustomed to. So some of them get annoyed with the way they need to now adjust to interacting with our young people. Right? So these are all of the things that are in our space. And they impact our advocacy ability and our self-efficacy efforts, because where are we getting these reference points? This is why I say to you, chew up the fat, spit out the bone. Because people are people and they are in their journey.
Right.
People make things happen and people don't make things happen. So we got to look at also our conversation of, okay, what do we take from the Matrix that doesn't work for us? Because women's lib stuff, that didn't really work for us. Men learning how to be men from a patriarchal society, that's white male patriarchal consciousness about subjugating people.
Perverted
and
consciousness.
African men turn around and subjugate and oppress African women. You can possibly learn manhood from the Matrix. In order for you to demonstrate manhood, you got to be strong and you got to beat somebody up. You got to crack a head. You got to be out here taking up space. You got to, and you got to growl it out. And your woman's supposed to be submissive to you, because if she ain't, she disrespecting you. And you're learning that from men who decided it was okay to take people's humanity from them, stamp them animals, and then subjugate them for 400 years and then deceive them into believing that they tripping for not liking it. This is what happened. So you can't learn manhood from this space. There is no mechanism here. And any space that has been touched by European consciousness is affected by this narrative. Even though, say for instance, continental Africans still have access to some of their traditions, they've been touched by colonial consciousness. And it has impacted their social expression of their heritage and their traditions. It has impacted. Right, so we have to now check in with what works for African people, and if we don't necessarily, because we don't have to go back to the way it was, but we need specifically things that we need to move forward, because we need unity. We need to have self-efficacy. What is self-efficacy? So let me divine some things for you real quick. Oh, let me ask you this. Let's see. What are some of the things you noticed that we got from our Matrix experience that don't really work for African people, but we do it every day? Even things that we say, even sayings.
No, like I was saying earlier, the whole
you
can't beat them, join them. This idea of radical individualism that it may not have been labeled as such, but that's what we've come up with. Maybe it's out there, I don't know. But it's the idea of like kind of like, you gotta get yours, I'm gonna get mine type of mentality. This is a divisive mentality is what we pull from the Matrix. And for one of the things, and I don't know if anybody's ever noticed this type of thing, but I have. When you talk about human interaction in the streets, I look at European, Euro-Gentile folks, and the idea of even simply walking around each other, right? They're very quick to split up. Even if they're in a group, they're very quick to split up around people and not even think twice about it. Whereas, we as come from a culture where relationships are crucial, connection is crucial to us, and it's something we need to be mindful of. That's why it's a distortion of our being to be in this radical individualism space, is that we pull together. We pull to like we'll pull this out, we'll pull our partner to the side, or we'll step closer to our partner or whatever when walking in the street, as an example, right? Of just a simple way of observing what mechanisms are in this space, or what behaviors and ideals and mindsets are in the space, right? There's this long-standing idea of divisive behaviors that are moving around in the space. So that's one of the biggest ones that I've noticed, is that radical individualism. Like, look, don't worry about them or whatever. I'm gonna throw them under the bus to get what I need to get. I'm gonna have to break, like you said, crack a few heads to get to the top. And that's something to look at. Some of our more wealthy Black folks, like, who did they have to step on to get where they needed to be in certain European-centered spaces, right? Because at the end of the day, self-preservation over anything. There's probably one of the good things that actually came out of the spaces, that there's self-preservation over everything. Is that this idea of they're not striving for other people to be in the space. They're striving for number one. So for you to move up the ranks, what does it mean you had to do, or what folks did you have to engage, or what folks you had to leave behind to get to where you needed to go? Because even the idea of integration, in Kwame Ture's book, was looking at this idea when they first talked about integration, was like, well, integration for white folks in that time was this idea of you can go to our schools, and then you become the pick of the litter of the Negroes that goes to the white schools, because the white school means better education. Whereas the integration didn't mean we're equally using these spaces. We're in an integrated society where we're equally using the spaces and resources they have available. No, integration, by definition of through their actions, was you get to go to our schools and be a better addition to society, or a better component of society with a stamp of approval, right? But your home where you came from, the schools are still going to be run down, right? There ain't going to be enough access to good food. The apartment buildings, or the project buildings, whatever the case may be, the way of living, the cost of living, all that is not going to change. It's actually going to get worse, right? And you're going to be compiled in these spaces where you got to fight to survive. Right, but don't worry about them. Come over here with us if you want to be of a better support to society, which AKA means a better support to the system. And the more of you are divided away from that consciousness and that being of your Africanness in your home and your family, that means a better chance we have at survival in this state and maintaining control, because we have more of you on our side than on your own side. So I think that's something to consider. I don't think we think about enough, especially in integration conversation. I remember talking about this online and just having some folks that we knew just very much. Well, I think integration was, it was this good thing that happened for us. Mind you, they were someone who had a partner who was not of African descent at all. So the conversation made sense for them to have that, right? But the reality of the conversation was like, it's so much deeper than what you're thinking of. Just everyone can love everybody, right? We're talking about integration, meaning like, do you know what it means? Do you know what it means for cultures and society?
Do you know what was lost?
What was
when we talked about integration?
Who gained? Win, lose. Because that's the society we're based in, is a win-lose. There's no society where equity reigns supreme and everyone is winning based off what they have available to them. Right. We're in a society where someone has to win and someone has to lose. Competition exists. The idea of healthy competition is not real. It's an illusion to make you think it's a good time. It's not. The reality is someone has to lose. We're going to be on top. We're number one, and you have to fall down the ladder. I can't have you up here with me. There's no room. The resources are finite. Everything's finite. The Thanos mentality of like, some of these people are going to have to go. We're going to have to get rid of some folks because we need to reign supreme. And say it's about balance. And say it's about preservation, support of humanity. Wrong. It's about getting rid of Africans.
It's all rhetoric. So these are some of the things that we've taken away. I also know that we've taken away, I want to just define for you really quickly, because, in the academic space, we're going to start with the level playing field. We as African people get to self-advocacy. It's important to have that ability to self-advocate without it always looking like a knuckle and buckle. Because when I advocate with people, I don't go with the knuckle and buckle, but they still shrink. African people, they shrink when I start asking questions. I've heard things like combative. I've heard things like, why are you so aggressive? Why you being pushy? I've heard weird things like this, and it's literally just a conversation. It's a conversation. In fact, my background as a Libra, you already know I'm supposed to ask you questions. Just know when I walk in the door, I got questions, because you can't just tell me anything and I'm just gonna go along with that. It doesn't work. I need clarity and I need understanding, and I also need a commitment from you, because I need to know that we are moving in harmony together in balance. So these are some of my personal requisites, and people who know me know this, and yet they still are shocked when I come at them. When I invite the conversation, and it's literally just a conversation. So now we have this thing with advocacy. Self-advocacy is recognized as the ability to speak and act on behalf of oneself and a cause. Self-advocacy is an important skill that students use in their youth and throughout their lives. Self-advocacy skills include being assertive, knowing one's rights, negotiating and speaking up for oneself or a cause. Okay? Self-advocacy. African people in a white-centered consciousness and in an anti-black space where there's no affirming of the fact that there is anti-blackness in our system experience, period, and our social landscape. Because at the end of that comes blame because of white-centered consciousness. White-centered consciousness hears allowing that space to become, would create a sense of blame. And whiteness is actually responsible for that outcome. Whiteness and white cultural consciousness and white brain is responsible for anti-blackness and systemic racism and systemic oppression, is responsible for those things. So what it does is it pretends them away, and it creates a very tight and uncomfortable experience for you to engage in self-advocacy where those things are concerned, which is what came into our community when they started saying, don't use the race card. Yeah, they don't want you to use the race card, because if you address to not using the race card, then where's your leverage? Right? Because anti-blackness and systemic oppression is at the bottom, the foundation of 99.9% of the things that African people experience, including poor mental health, including a lack of food access, a lack of support access, a lack of an ability to have self-efficacy. African people make bad decisions because of some of the self-efficacy circumstances that they've had in our anti-black society. And guess what? Anti-blackness and oppression is at the cusp, is right at the foundation of it. So what they've done is they've taken away your ace in a hole. They've taken away your ace in a hole. And what they did was they tried to replace it with that whole bootstrap theory. See, the bootstrap theory has been debunked, but it still lives in our society, because people who are having a white cultural experience still believe that the society that feeds them and that they thrive in is balanced and fair. All you got to do is work hard. This is what they believe. They have to believe this because they have mental and emotional fail-safes that support that. And because the higher you go, the whiter you get. So the people who are making the decisions that affect your life every day are creating and mechanizing their reality. So when they say that anti-blackness don't exist and that America is not a racist country, that's what they mean. And they mechanize it in all of their systems to ensure that even if you say so, we don't really care how many videos you show us, how many systems, how many people get burnt out on the job after all of the things that they go through on these jobs, how many people, whatever, these are the things that come in our place. So you need to have the skill of balanced and emotionally balanced self-advocacy abilities as an African, especially when you become human. Because remember, inside of that anti-blackness and anti-Africanness and the systemic oppression is the lack of humanity of African people. Because remember, America was established on the bottom line was that these people are not human. This is why we can treat them like cattle. We got them from Africa. They were animals. They were savages. They didn't even wear clothes, and they fought with sticks and they beat with rocks. That's what they said. And they brought them here because they can't think. They can barely speak. Mind you, they speak in their own language. They had whole civilizations for tens of thousands of years, long before a European ever came to the coast, any coast of Africa. So when they went to Senegal, when they went to Sierra Leone, when they went down all up the coast, right? Togo, all up Nigeria, Benin, all up the coast, they took Africans and they said they were not human and they brought them to America. So America has yet to reconcile that human beings, African people, because people who are having a white cultural experience see the injustices that happen to African people every day. And somehow they're able to just go along with their lives and be disconnected to it entirely. There is a switch in there that allows this as possible. Because human beings, it's not possible to not be impacted. If I saw someone get hurt, if I saw someone falling, if I saw someone crying, if I saw somebody, a child ailing, I'm going to have a response to that. So there's no way, there's something in the space. So the things that are in the space that allows people who are having a white cultural experience to disconnect themselves, Dr. Jordan would call it cognitive dissonance. I believe it's something even more profound than that. That's epigenetic. Those things cannot help you become a human African and be a fully functional animated African. They cannot. They are diametrically opposed to one another. Because you have to fold into African people. You have to start caring about African people. You have to start caring when hurt comes to African people. You can't take a father, you can't get into a beef with a black man and take a black man from a home where his children will be raised without kids. You can't do that. You have to do the Black Panther and say, you know what, brother? I'm gonna squash this beef. You know what? It ain't even that important. I don't even really care. Look,
Right.
man, it's all good. You know what? Let's figure out a way to work this thing out. Let's work together.
Right.
Whatever it happens to be. Okay, so that's self-advocacy. Let's look at self-esteem versus self-efficacy, because we're going to talk about what is self-efficacy. Because some of us believe that because we need mental health help. We need mental health help.
Yeah.
So this is part of the reason why we have things that we see in our society, within our community, our social behaviors that we think is building our self-esteem, but it's not building our self-efficacy. Two different things. Self-esteem is a realistic respect for your own abilities to achieve and thrive in life, while self-efficacy is how you feel about your ability to function in different situations. High self-efficacy is the optimistic strength of your belief in your own abilities to complete tasks and produce desired outcomes. So a lot of us are building self-esteem because we've dealt with a society where the Africans are not human. We've been building up self-esteem and our confidence in the way we look and our abilities and our presentation,
Yeah.
but we're not building up self-efficacy, and that's the pride in our own abilities to answer our own problems and create favorable results. They're different things. They're not the same. And I run into, because I have high self-esteem, but I also have extremely high self-efficacy. Because I've been solving my own problems since I was like 10 years old. Like I've literally been analyzing and solving my own, because I was a big piece from the group home. So I wasn't raised by parents for the majority of my life. So from 10 years old, I've been able to solve my own problems. So I have a lot of experience creating solutions and doing things in a strategy to get an outcome. So I've mastered this particular aspect of my life. Mastered, beyond mastery. They said 10,000 hours is Malcolm Gladwell's idea of self-mastery, of mastering a skill, which is 4 hours a day for 10 years, 10,000 hours of practical practice creates mastery of a skill. So for myself, who have been on this journey for 3 decades plus, I've mastered many skills. So they are now a natural default and they show up without any effort. It's not the same as self-esteem, though. Self-esteem is one of the easiest things to work on because it's literally based on your own self-perception of yourself. Once you get behind, I'm all right with my curves, I'm all right with my skin, I'm all right with my hair. Now what? We dress up pets. Like dressing up, I these are things that I shy away from. I don't spend a lot of time in fashion. All of these things that the system manipulates you into being in your feeling space. As an African, and you're looking at strategic planning for the forerun, we're talking about maintenance and long game. We got to play the long game, African, because we didn't get here yesterday. So we got to play the long game, and we run into these hiccups around what is mental health, because some of us are in the front of the room only because we need therapy. So we really shouldn't be in the front of the room. We really should be somewhere in therapy getting self-esteem. Some of us replace self-esteem with praise and people clapping for us. But we still have no self-efficacy. So this is when I come into the space, or when you, or when other Africans who are on their journey come into space and discover that these people in the front of the room have no self-efficacy, which is why they don't really have solutions for problems for Africans. And they're not in the front of the room generating the energy for the solutions for Africans. They're just up there building up their self-esteem so that people will clap for them. That's different. We need people with high self-efficacy to deal with strategies for helping Africans get out of the shit we're in. Different. And most of us as people, we don't really know the difference. This is why we clap for mediocrity. This is why we prop up people for very little or nothing. We don't have a real measurement. We don't have the mind. We're not strategizing across a line with a baseline of what's good for African people. What do African people need? Have we taken the opportunity to look at what exactly do we need as a community that's going to help us?
No, I don't think we've taken a hard look because we're pulled in different directions of what that looks like. Like you said, if you haven't processed what that, not even just the self efficacy, but the self esteem around your everyday living experience, then you're not even getting to anywhere of understanding what you may actually need and how to get it. One, right, and what that is, how to get it, and and all of the ins and outs in between to maintaining that, right, and then getting more and then stepping to the next level, right. And maybe like I said that you get to, if you get to a certain space of self-esteem, you may be able to be in the space to work on what that self-efficacy gets to look like, because you developed a certain perception, a self-perception of yourself that allows you to explore these other opportunities. Okay, like, well, I'm pretty confident in who I am as just a being,
right,
but like there's some stuff I really don't know. Let me go figure that out. I think I'm like the idea of I think I'm enough to go figure this thing out, right? Versus to your particular point of there are those that use, like, that make grandstand in certain spaces or at the front of certain rooms to build their self-esteem, meaning they're still at a certain level where they haven't even begun to really do the work, but they saw it looked like a nice idea and decided, let me jump in here and do and have other people tell me if I'm good enough to do this work.
Exactly.
It's there's steps to the process that are being missed, and even in that, those steps stop because you're so enamored by the self-esteem that's been raised and the validation that if you stop there, you thought that that's been good enough. Well, it's working for these folks, so I can just keep this going, right? And because and even further is because now you're in front of an audience of folks in the same boat. So they won't even know the difference because they haven't processed it.
They won't know the difference.
So if you're talking about someone who's building up their self-esteem in the front of a room of folks that may have none, vacant esteem, or may still be in their process as well, then you're gonna look like you're giving them gold if you have a certain level of what that is. But that's not enough, right? And that's not enough to get us to even answer the question of, do we know what we need? What steps we will? Not only what step to take, what are we willing to do to take those steps? How willing are we to jump in and have those things turn out to get into the space to get what we need? Right? We get to be to do what you need to do to have what needs to be had in that space, whatever that space gets to look like, right? For your own betterment as an African, right? We're not exploring that at all, and we're giving away our energy to these 1,000,000,001 other spaces that are headed by folks, not only one out of African descent, or even other African consciousness, understanding what African consciousness even really is, even at a small degree, but also we're not even allowing ourselves to just be in that particular moment to get that therapy or sit with ourselves or be with our people around what needs to be done. So it's a lot that needs to be broken down before we can even begin. And then we've talked in different spaces with folks that are doing certain types of work, especially deeply in African rooted culture and spirituality and identity and what that means from a real root perspective, directly in the continent, and that type of energy of understanding, looking at the landscape like we're not anywhere near ready for revolution. We're not anywhere ready for talking about conversations of liberation.
We're not ready.
When we're not even at when we can't even see the starting line, let alone the finish line in that conversation. There's still work to be done.
Because I'm still trying to figure out, what are you creating? When people start talking revolution, I'm going, what are you creating? Because I'm not hearing sovereignty for African people, even in the places where I hear about the revolution, or when I hear about trying to recreate a social landscape, I'm still not hearing the conversation of sovereignty for African people where they get to self-govern. I still hear us functioning within the parameters that were given to us. Right. This system does not work, period. It cannot be repaired. It can't be fixed. It can't be maintenance. It cannot exist. People who are having a white culture experience, if they want to keep it, then let them keep it. But as African people, our only play right now is to disengage.
Right.
That's going to be our most impactful play. And I literally keep saying this because if we don't do something that's impactful soon, the shit is going down right now. It's happening in this moment. Right. And I don't even want to get into the bigger gloom and doom conversation. I'm really in the action conversation for us as people, because the reality of it is many of us are not even assessing what's happening. We literally keep thinking it's going to be the same as it was yesterday, but it really is not. when African people left and migrated from the South and all came north, supposedly herded up to the north, out of the fields. Most of them lost the land that they had, or the government took the land that they had, or they were ran off the land that they had through the Jim Crow laws, right? All kinds of city and small town manipulation because of Jim Crow, because the people had a bigger authority in the space where you were, because African people they were on the cusp of survival after they burned them out from Reconstruction. So you got 20, 30 years after Reconstruction, people are just desperate, right? They're desperate because the people who burned out African people all over these cities were jealous of what these African people had, were not going to be the people that would give them jobs. So they created horrible and hostile working environments. So African people couldn't wait to get away from those environments. So when they got the opportunity to quote unquote go up north and get the good jobs, because my grandmother came up here when she was 20 and she never had a good job. She only worked as a domestic worker. She never got one of those really, really good jobs. A couple of my family members ended up getting something decent. You know, they got a little bit more education and, you know, they was able to find a maneuver, you know, but then the family dynamic was gone. The unity, the community type of experience, because, you know, down south, pretty much everybody lived in the same house. You know, and my grandmother had a one-room house. I mean, my great-grandmother had a one-room house. They had put a door that had a little side that you could walk to the side and go to the rooms. And as time went on, they built a room back there. But at one point, that was just an open space with the old oven, the old cast iron ovens that heated and cooked. You know, so once that was lost and everybody got to New York and everybody was trying to build self-esteem, So now we got to go buy stuff to make ourselves feel good.
I just need to feel good about it.
We got to buy stuff. We now can get a house. And see, that's what happens when you're kept in a pressure cooker, because that's what's happening now. African people have been without things that don't really matter for so long because someone else has created the standards for you. And because you don't have any measurement tools, you think that if you go get these things, and people are dying over these things, and there's stress, and there's breakdowns in mental health, and there's a lot of infighting about things that don't really matter for an African. Having a this or that for an African inside of the lack of self-efficacy that we as a 42 million, 50 million Africans strong here have, it's of no consequence. It's of no consequence. You can move to whatever zip code you want to move to. They're still treating you subpar. Your children still go to these universities and deal with these other people who have white brain, white considered consciousness. They still mistreat your children in these universities. Okay? These people who have a white cultural experience, you think you're sending your child to a good school, their children still bully your kids. Right? Your African child goes to this quote unquote better school, and these people who have white centered consciousness who believe African people are dumb. So any African that ends up in their spaces are obviously some sort of exception. Or maybe better yet, they're not even going to treat you like you're an exception. They're going to treat you like you in their space and what the hell you doing here? And make you feel unwanted, because that's all I've ever heard for those that make it out. Some of them, they ended up getting turned inside out and they become brown on the outside and white on the inside. And they're no good to African community regardless. They're no good to the African community. So now what? You've got your best and brightest now been turned out, and they're of no good to you. And this is what happens over and over and over and over and over again. It continues to create more of the same. So as African people, what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? Because the rest of us that's left out here, we continue to tussle more with each other than we even are with our circumstances. I spend more time tussling with Africans than I do actually doing advocacy work out here on these streets where I could actually be of more help.
Right, and tussling while doing the work.
So I'm tussling while doing the work and still out here looking like bling, bling, shining on. And folks just think that it's just a happy-go-lucky kind of day. Not realizing that I am agile with the circumstances. It's not helpful. I'm not getting ready to break down, but it's a waste of time. And it's a waste of a valued resource. That's what it is. It's a waste. Because the majority of people actually need therapy. They don't actually need to be in the front of the room. They need to be in somebody on the couch getting some African-centered therapy so that they can build self-efficacy separate. And I don't applaud. You look nice. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I don't deal with that. I don't deal with your clothes. I don't deal with how you're looking, because I had to put myself through a space to get out of all of those vulnerable places. Those are things that make you vulnerable to the matrix. So if you don't have these things, you have a mental breakdown. If you can't sustain yourself, people pick at you, you're going to break down. Yes, they are breaking down. Our children today are breaking down. Our children today are committing suicide.
Yeah.
Our children today have no self-efficacy and no self-esteem. And our parents have not taught them how to build their own self-esteem without needing things. And without it looking like deprivation. It doesn't have to look like deprivation because you choose not to buy foolishness. It's not deprivation. It's a conscious choice to not engage in things that make you vulnerable. That's power. That's empowered. You do this when you are empowered. You don't participate in certain things that you know won't be good for your spirit, your mental health, and your emotional health that the matrix wants to put you in so that it can mind boggle you. Right. You are empowered to disengage in these activities. That's building self-efficacy. That's taking control and getting in the driver's seat.
Right. Problem in that is well, as far as people see it, is that so many of us are like born into this space of just hurt and pain, that's what they know. And to see anything outside of that becomes the discomfort. So it's a challenge to even be like, I need to let go of these things that are actually harmful, because this is what I know. This is what I know has kept me afloat in a society that perpetuates this. Well, you tell me smoke is no good, but there's smoke ads everywhere. You tell me drink is no good, but there's ads of people partying and drinking everywhere every day. So what is it? This is conflicting. I'm going to do these things until something better comes along, because it's easier for me to deal with. And one, it helps me escape. It's easy for me to do, right? Then do the stand-up work to let it go.
And it's allowable.
It's allowable, right?
Nobody's going to pick me. Nobody's going to blackmail me. Nobody's going to blacklist me.
Right.
I ain't got to walk around with a bullet on my face.
Right.
Or
and I don't have to worry about any type of having to show up for certain folks. People can just expect. Yeah, exactly. People just expect me to just probably fuck this thing up and whatever. So, but at least I can give them something to latch onto. What are we talking about? Bacon and steam and post-traumatic slave syndrome. Dr. Jordan was talking about how the idea of bacon and steam and young black children are like, well, if you want to call me a menace to society and constantly profile me or say I'm a criminal, or say I'm a thug, or say I'm a thief, I'm just go ahead and be it then. Because if this is what I have to constantly run into, if these are going to be my four walls of my everyday existence, inside my home and outside my home, then I might as well just do it, right? And then you get that perpetuated throughout time. And
then you get accustomed to receiving negative attention, and positive attention is something foreign to you. Some of these young people, you can't touch them, you can't hug them, you can't love on them, you don't say kind things. All they're used to is negativity.
Yeah.
Grown people the same way.
So if you say kind things, it ends up being like what you're trying to get from them.
What you want. On flex mode. And then adults, when you see that behavior compounded by 30 years, you see, I tell a sister recently, I said, listen, sis, you got to knock some of that aggression off of that. You have to knock some of that aggression off of that, because we also learn womanhood, and black womanhood is different from white womanhood. Because white women start going to cuckoo and showing you the damsel in distress. Everybody runs to their aid. Let a black woman start crying. What is wrong with her? Why don't she get her shit together? Stop that. Right? Don't nobody go see how she doing. Black women trying to get down. All the white women got to do with her shoulder go. And everybody try to help the white women with her stroller down the stairs. Let a black woman try to get down the stairs with her stroller. I see her with 3 bags on her back, holding a baby's hand, trying to hold the rail, and got the stroller leaning on her hip, trying to get down the stairs one step at a time. Now I got to walk across 5-10 people trying to get to this woman, and I have a back problem. I'm trying to deal with my back to help this woman with the stroller. Why?
That's an energy that's been nurtured since the days of slavery, days of chattel slavery.
Absolutely.
The idea, and also what lends itself further is this idea of like why people can't stand to step in when a black body is taken down, or a black child is kidnapped, or a racist interaction causes harm to a black person, because in slavery they were taught that these folks, or the consensus was that black folks don't feel pain, or they're monsters, they're beasts, whatever. They just product. They're just part of the cattle as well. Like they don't feel no pain. They got tough skin. Don't worry about it. We can cut them up, cut them open. We can hang them. We can burn them. We can do all this stuff. Don't give them no meds. We can have them fight each other for our entertainment. Right.
That was medical apartheid. They even showed y'all that on 12 Years a Slave, when they gave him a cold beer for beating this man to death. Really? Two big, strong black men beat each other to death, and to this very day, black men on the street fighting each other to the death because of the mental health issues that we have in our community.
That's Pavlovian.
That's conditioned behavior.
Yeah.
So that you can get what? A bottle of beer. So you can get what? Some gold teeth.
Right. Because now
gold necklace.
Because now you're doing it on your own.
So
you ain't had nobody
start.
forcing you. You're doing it on your own.
It's still the puppet master is still at play.
Of course.
You just don't see the puppet master.
Of course.
Because you didn't do the knowledge. So since you didn't do the knowledge, you haven't discovered how they're playing you. So everybody was, there's a big argument on the ground, the curse of the Willie Lynch letter. If you've done the psychology and the sociology and the behavioral condition around these things, you would know it doesn't matter whether or not the curse of the Willie Lynch letter actually existed. The science of it is exact. It's exact.
Right.
The science and the application of it in our social landscape is exactly precise to the point where there could have actually been, in essence, a curse of the Willie Lynch letter.
Maybe his name wasn't Willie Lynch, whatever. It doesn't matter. The person actually doesn't matter. They don't miss the point.
It's not about that. It's about getting to what happened and what occurred in the aftermath of those days, and how they are conducted, how we are now just self-submitting, learn helplessness in our spaces. Right. And, it's something for us to really look at, and because we have these bad behaviors in our society that says we've learned how black women are supposed to be black women. What's feminine? I don't know where they get femininity, as in you got to have your butt out. Everybody got to see. There was a time about 25, 30 years, even right now, when black women, all of them take their pictures with their butts at the camera. Mm-hmm. What are you on display for?
Right.
I'm just saying, first of all, okay, so it was a thing where the big butts, big lips, big boobs, hippie, and all of that stuff was frowned upon by Europeans who were creating the social standard, who are now still creating the social standard, because now that they've decided and they've discovered that white women's envy for black women's curves and body parts, now they get to have them too. Now they're okay to have. Now everybody should be all right with having big butts and big boobs and big lips and curves and stuff.
Right, but it's okay for everyone else
to have them, because they literally just, they still shy away from African women in their natural essence. Right. And they will give some someone who is other themselves, or white people with African features, position in the front of the room. Like they make such a big deal over Kardashian, over the Kardashians. Like they make a major deal over the Kardashians and these curves that this woman has, or what have you. And at the end of the day, black women have always had those curves. Matter of fact, we can lift up right now Sarah Bartman, the Venus Hottentot, 24 years old, died of pneumonia, drug her from Africa, brought her to Europe to put her in a cage so that people could look at how big her butt was. So people could look at how big her butt was. And how dysfunctional is white-centered consciousness that they would then cut off her private parts, put them on display in a museum for examination as if something is specifically wrong with her for being able to grow a big butt, because white women had zero butt. Zero. Pancake, you used to call them pancake butts. You can lean them over and iron your pants. That's how flat they were. I'm just saying. And if you look at Josephine Baker back in the 20s, she had a little butt. She had shaped curves and stuff like that. So when that was happening, white women didn't have all of that stuff. And even in that time, the average size, even for white women, was a size 13, 14. You look at the ads from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. White women, they became skinny. There was a mental mind manipulation that occurred when something changed in the social landscape. All of a sudden, women went from being full. Because even if you look at the paintings in Europe, those paintings, being heavy was a sign. Yeah. They were full women. Wealth, they were full women. Being heavier was a sign of wealth. So women were full, mostly. Like being skinny, when you look at, Anne Boleyn and all of these folks, when you watch these Borgias and all of these things, these European and Victorian shows and stuff like that, King Arthur and things like that, and you see these skinny women, that's all for TV. Yeah. Those women didn't really look like that. Right. Being thick was a sign of wealth. And it was the same in Africa. Being heavier and stockier was a sign of wealth. Yeah. So we have to look at what we are subscribing to in terms of our own susceptibility to self-hatred. We have to look at that as a vulnerable point that we get to harness and take back, so that we build our own self-efficacy, we build our own self-esteem and our own self-efficacy. And we then narrate what appropriate behavior is good and healthy for us in our social landscape. In our social landscape, we have to be the ones to dictate what is good. And we don't have to use a religion to do it, because religion has replaced therapy. And a lot of people who are in religious spaces are suffering from some of the worst kinds of mental health problems that is just so detrimental. They're detrimental because you're not getting the opportunity to examine your behavior through a religious lens. Religion used to be the social climate. It used to encompass the entire social existence, including government, marriage, business, and everything in between for African people. The religious way of being used to do that. It used to be that function. But now there's too much variety in the space, and everybody has their own narratives. And oftentimes what ends up happening is people use religion to relinquish their control of themselves and their own faculties. I have a problem with that, because I want you to have self-efficacy, and I know that that's best for you. From one African to another African, I know that I want you to be able to control your mind, your thoughts, your actions, and your consequences. That's self-efficacy. Religion does not allow African people to have that. Okay, because having a self-efficacy conversation with people who are steeped in religion about accountability, it's a miss every time. I don't care how many doctorate degrees they have from educational institutions, they are still at a miss for their own accountability of their own actions and thoughts. They hide behind the mask of religious posturing. And I, for one, I'm not trying to debunk you. I'm not trying to tear you down. I am trying to find solutions for African people, and we need more people on board with creating authentic, functional, animated Africans. And we don't need people faking and posturing. We need people in whatever space you at, whatever religion you happen to be at. You should still, you're African first. You wasn't born into any religion. Religion, whatever that practice is for you, that's nurture. But nature, you were born African. You were born with your ability. You were born whole. And as you grew, you started to diminish. That's what happened. Because you begin to be maneuvered in a dysfunctional space. So what it did was it constricted your growth, tied you up, and made you grow straight like this, when you're supposed to be growing out like this and expanding your wings and growing into, you're supposed to be growing all out and feeling all over there and doing, that's what was supposed to happen to you. But what they did was they put you in this box right here, and this is how you grew. And you don't know what to do with it. So mentally, now your mind has to contend with what's happening to you in your physical space. And your mind is having difficulty connecting to what's supposed to be, because this right here is mathematical. It's a part of your DNA. But this right here is a part of your physical experience, and you don't understand why. There's contradiction. So what the Matrix does with this mental science, its behavioral conditioning, and its psychological conditioning, and its propaganda, is it gives you natural defaults to comfort your mind so that you'll be okay being in this box. So that you will stay in the box and you will contortion yourself to fit this box because it's comfortable and they've given you rewards. It's a positive reinforcement for you to stay in that box. And what about all the people that can't get in the box? Because there's a lot of black folks out here, like you see these wandering Africans, and their faces are all glazed over, and they just look like they've been going through the mill. Those are the Africans that can't take the program. Some of these Africans that get out here and get addicted to drugs, and they get out here in all kinds of circumstances, and they get all caught up in doing bad things for acknowledgement, to be seen or whatever. They can't take the program. They're rejecting the program. So it's us who are taking the programming, who are allowing some of us to be sat out. And the ones that are sat out are detriments to the ones that are in. So how do we create? What do we do with our behavior so we can create safety for all Africans, so that all Africans can be seen, Sawubona, and acknowledged? We have to look at this because we've taken too many foolishness things, womanhood, manhood from the Matrix. How is African people going to take manhood from the Matrix? Men have a different function and women have a different function. And those functions are assets to creating fortification for African people. Period. That's how the divine made it so. The bee comes along and he pollinates that plant. He goes over there, he gets the pollination, pollinates the plant, takes the pollination. Then he takes some of the pollination, he goes over here, he sits on this plant, and he does a little bit, leave a little bit of that stuff that he got from that plant on this plant. This plant is now going to grow a fruit. On that fruit is what you're going to eat that's going to bring you as a human now nourishment. That's a part of divine mathematics. It's divine mathematics. Everybody has their job to do. What's better or worse? That's all man-made consciousness. That's stupidity. And it keeps you out of alignment with balance. Everyone is supposed to be in their square, functioning to their highest capacity. Everybody is supposed to be doing what they are supposed to be doing because everybody's doing contributes to the overall wealth and health of the environment. Period. That's it. Like, that's simple as pumpkin pie right now to me. It really is. So all of the things that we fill our spaces with that create confusion, someone is creating confusion and propaganda because your confusion is your vulnerability, which means someone else is getting their come up. Right. That's it, period. It's a racket. It's a racket. So how do we mechanize our behaviors so that we can be different around what we are doing and creating in our communities and get in the driver's seat for what we want to create in our communities? When are we going to stop being afraid to speak the truth in our community? And it's not a fight because it doesn't have to be a fight. Right. If you hear alarm from me when I'm speaking to you here in the Soundbytes, it's because of urgency. It's a need for us to immediately get to work, getting busy. That's it. It's danger ahead. It's danger. I'm giving you an alarm. Bing, 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 bing. Wake up, get busy. Come on, hurry. Get to work. Because it is urgent and it's a necessity.
Yeah. We have to stick with it. We have to know how to synthesize when we get this information and how to implement it once we do so, right? We got to be able to read it, figure it out, work on it, and then put it back out into the world so more people can grab a hold of it. So, yeah.
Our sister Chrissy out here been going in. Let me see what you got to say, Chrissy. Give thanks. Yes, she been chatting it out with us.
It's giving us some energy.
She got a whole bunch of energy out there. I appreciate you, my sister girl. She and I have the same birth date, exactly the same birth date. Yeah, I mean, I got quite a few people in my life right now that have the same birth date.
Shouts out to Libra seasons upon us.
Okay.
Virgos, we had our time.
Libra things gone.
Libras, we see y'all here.
I'm a Libra, but I'm like, honorary Virgo because
okay.
Me and my 6 years.
So we be doing some energy on Sunday, so that's what we're gonna do. So shouts out to the queen, shouts out to the fellow Libras, shouts out to you, sister
Libra
Chrissy.
Life.
See you coming up this Sunday as well. So y'all got y'all time coming.
Libra season, Libra Ma'atian season out here on these streets. Absolute balance. I'm born for that. That's how it came out. The universe truly knew what it was doing because it definitely put a proper setting on this sister girl here. Give thanks. I am blessed.
Yes, indeed.
Grateful. I'm humble. Give thanks.
Yes, indeed. Well, Soundbytes.
Okay, we're gonna wrap.
Yeah, Soundbytes International Radio. You know how we do on a Monday night, family. We come to talk to y'all. So this what we say? Come to service. What is it? What do you call it?
African people go to meeting.
Go to meeting.
You know how we do down south. Go to meeting. We got to go to meeting so we can talk about things that we need to talk about that are pertinent to the African diaspora.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And you need to hear it without any noise.
Yeah.
Without the weird.
We try to cut through the noise.
Try to really cut through the noise. Get right to the strategy. It's not. And we put it to you, it's not confusing. It's very simple and it's very implementable. Now, what you get to do
doesn't have to be confusing.
Is take responsibility to get in the driver's seat. And I'm here to tell you I'm gonna use one of those Bible verses when it says, because there's a metaphor in the Bible where it says, "Oh, ye of little faith." He said when Jesus and Peter walked out into the water, you're gonna walk out into a life of self-efficacy and and sovereignty for African people that is uncharted water for us in this space right now. So it's gonna be a little bit fearful at first, but you keep going because you can have faith that, guess what, you know what you're doing. I don't mean get reckless. I mean do some real research about it. Don't just be out here just flying willy-nilly by the seat of your pants, though, but there is a sense of being confident in your ability to find solutions and implement to create the desired outcome, and that comes with practice. It comes with practice. You're not gonna get where you're trying to go if you're on the sideline looking out there like, damn, I wish I could get out there. So no, it ain't gonna happen. You can keep faking, you can keep copying whoever you want to copy, but you will not get there. And I see them, they all fall by the wayside because all they be doing is posturing. It's some work to carry it. It's responsibility when you can hold it. It is what's necessary to design your own self-efficacy mechanism so that you can be in the driver's seat. And it's available to every African. It's available. It's available to you. Period. I'm not gonna play you out. I'm not selling you no wolf tickets. I'm not telling you it's a cakewalk. I'm not gonna put tough positivity. I'm not doing none of that toxic positivity foolishness to rock you to sleep and have you high. I'm telling you that you can take pleasure in knowing that you're gonna get out there and be rocking out on your own terms. That's what I'm saying to you. You can do it, and it's gonna take some work, and it's a joyful time to be in creation. That's what I tell you, because it's no book here. It's no mechanism. It's nothing. You're writing the story. We as African people, we are rewriting our narrative. So write your story. It's a great time to be in a joyful place to be in creation, in alignment with the divine energy of creation.
Yes.
I don't care. 2 years, absolutely. 30 years old, 100 years old. If the breath is still in your body, get to work.
Absolutely.
Start driving. Make it happen today.
But it's up to you to do the work.
You gotta do it.
Yeah. Work, practice, patience, and grace, because it's going to take that to get to where you need to go, to get to the goal. So,
and we need more Africans on the journey,
more,
so that we can start to insulate each other. Because I'm telling you, we make it look easy, but it ain't easy. We make it look easy, one, because we have each other. One, that's a very big plus. We have each other. I had been doing this work.
Talk about those spaces to synthesize and be and go through it, right? You need those healthy spaces.
You need healthy spaces, and it's nothing like having good reflection.
Yes.
There's so much benefit, and it's difficult to get it from elsewhere, right? I had to consult myself, and guess what? I just talked to my ancestors just like that. Because I don't want to have foolishness conversations, so I just talk to myself and my ancestors.
I was there for a long time, too.
And that's okay, because guess what? I don't want no foolishness going into my mind. I didn't say I'm talking to myself because I'm narrating myself and I'm co-signing my own foolishness, because that's different. No, I don't want you to talk to yourself and lie to yourself and co-sign your foolishness. No, I was talking to myself and my ancestors, working out details, strategizing, analyzing, pinching out vulnerabilities, picking up designing plans and programs to change my behaviors and actions and implementing them in the physical space to get the real-time practice. That's a whole different process. And since there's no space for it, wasn't happening at church, wasn't happening at the Buddhist temple, wasn't happening over here, wasn't happening over there, but I had these mechanisms and they fulfill a certain need.
Right.
They have a function, they do a thing, and that's it. That's all it was good for.
Strapped up.
It did what it needed to do. It gave me what I needed to get, and I keep it moving. And I don't have no qualms because this social environment is someone else's creation. It's not mine. I don't owe nothing to it. Right. I'm just saying, African, that's for you.
Let's do it.
Get some.
So, in that, remember, once again, make sure you subscribe to our channels and clean up, do some housekeeping. Remember, go to Soundbytes International Radio on YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button and tell your friends and tell your village to subscribe as well.
Tell your friends.
I want to build up our subscriber base there. We also are, of course, live on Facebook. So follow and like us on Facebook, Soundbytes INTL Radio. Also go to Instagram, Soundbytes International Radio. Follow us there as well on all the platforms doing things. And of course, as I said, we have our past seasons, past episodes available on podcast format on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Soundbytes International Radio. So make sure you hit up those outlets as well. Take it with you. Hit replay, hit rewind. to run it back one time. Take some notes, write it down.
Get
Because so you
in.
can come into the chat next time, be like, yo, I was looking at season 2 and I want to bring this idea back and I want to talk about it because it matters to me.
Get
Whatever.
in there.
We appreciate it. So that's
Make
how
sure
we go.
you get it in.
So again, Soundbytes International Radio, y'all. African consciousness is the claim. One world is the aim. And we are signing out as we always do. We want to give you that high energy before we leave the broadcast. So we're going to hit y'all with that I am as always. And we want to keep that energy live. So stick with us, fam.
Stick with us one time. We're gonna wrap it up.
Absolutely. So stay tight.
I walk the face of the earth with a boldness which makes people ask who sent you. I tell them I am. They tell me that's a cute affirmation, but it's not an answer. I reply, listen again. My affirmation is your answer.
It's the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Hear the proof in the hi-hat. Eternal reflection, I digress. I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. Turn $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Anything I want, yeah, turn up. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the power of I am. Handsome chocolate mofo, yo. Anytime I'm on GoPro, lyrical high home growth. Living spots with a cold soul, yo. Conditions without morale, so low. So I pitched it fast, pitch it slow. Till the cows call home, bro. It didn't make sense. I was told as a child I wouldn't be shit. Revenge on my mind, started flipping the script. They fed me lies, started picking that shit. They treated me different, I embraced that shit. You know the ones that be closest to you to be the family ties. Sacred bonds, seeing plenty murder, dirty service, ludicrous. Cock up with a dirty burner, but better believe in me 1,000%. Bet I achieved what I was saying again. I couldn't resist. Kill these niggas with their toxicness without a popping piss or monotonous. Told myself I couldn't rock with this. Hanging with goofies couldn't get rich. True blood suckers couldn't see bliss, couldn't see shit. Kiss cold face, nigga you dead wrong. I ain't regurgitating, percolating, singing the same song. I'm blessed all day long, lame all day long. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. Fuck nigga, I am.
I'm totally surprised that I ain't lost my mind. Had to take setbacks and learn to accept facts that those I gave jetpacks that no planes don't fly. Now I'm in no space, so wasting my time. Focus my goals to shift paradigms. My get up and go to keep my folks from dying. So I'm on the road with a goal that's refined. Yeah, riding with a mean vision. Reflected from every angle through a clean prison. Dark matter reflecting in the color of gray. When I lost my mother, found peace aside my queen, and I laid in on my brothers. Yeah, art was shaping up the grand scheme. I don't wrestle to the mat on my damn demons. In a matter of time, became a champion. Now my everyday mantra to do the damn thing. So my aim to pack out every arena, inspire the future leaders with every line of the levers of gods and unbelievers. Do what they can't conceive us, love what we do and leave us. Brick, they never see us. Woo! God damn, I'm feeling good, motherfuck. What they say, I'm doing what they never would. Yeah. Get a grasp on your life, yeah. Pay many sacrificial prices. Go to your turn, playing nice, yeah. They gonna recognize who the nice is. From the north to the southeast, kicking others every lane, share about seats. I'm aligned with it, man. You cannot be. Say anything I won't yet die.
This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny that. Hear the proof in the hi-hat. Eternal reflection, I digress. I love me more, never love less. I love me more, never love less. Turn $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Look deep inside, yeah, you be the blessing. $1,000,000 dreams, yeah, how I manifest it. Anything I want, yeah, turn up. This is the power of I am. This is the greatness of I am. Look at the strength that I have. None of the truth can deny the power of
Man, I ain't
I am.
talking in terms of I wish, I want to, or even I will anymore. Only things I proclaim, I do, I have, and I am. I do as my ancestors instruct. I have all I need to affect change, and I am a living magnification of God.
One love, a blessed night, a cool week. Peace and blessings.